So we shall start this recording. So welcome to what we're calling Beauty from Ashes. And that's the podcast series exploring the sacred journey of transformation. So today we're going to talk with Natalie. But before we do so, I will introduce myself and allow Kim to introduce herself. My name is David Lloyd, and I am part of the Intersection Foundation. I'm one of the co-founders, which both of these lovely people are as well. So that's kind of my quick background, and I will dive into myself later. So that's who I am. Uh, Kim, tell us about who you are real quick, kind of.
I am also part of the Intersection Foundation. Recently have taken to using the name Celeste on occasion as a result of a profound journey with sacred mushroom ceremony. More on that later. Who I am in this moment is a person in a spiritual journey of self-discovery.
Beautiful. And last but not least, Natalie, tell us a bit about who you are, and then we'll dive into kind of questions on what you are and what made you who you are. First, introduce yourself.
Well, right now I'm a few things. I'm a mother of several kids, two still at home. I am in the startup business. I work in large scale cannabis with distributors and store chain owners. I also am an energy healer and I hold space for sacred ceremony.
Very nice. Very nice. So today is really about you, Natalie. So although we'll obviously have conversations, but really today we want to get to the bottom of how you came to be who you are. You know, both Kim and I have got to spend time with you and feel your spirit and understand who you are. And so we would love to share that beauty with the world. So let's kind of dive in with that.
Yeah. Oh man, I always wonder where to start with this kind of story because there's so many details and there's so many beautiful, hard moments or beautiful lessons that help me really rebirth into the person I feel I am today. For many years, I would say for about 36 of my 40 years, I played roles very well. I was very, very programmed deeply into the matrix and drank the Kool-Aid of the various programming. I lived the American dream. I had, lived in corporate America or worked in corporate America for about 15 years. Built the house, had the kids, check, 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 the marriage. And then one day I found myself startled and awakened, if you will, when my marriage came to a very big crashing halt. And what was two voices of, one playing the role and ignoring the reality of what I was living, and then the other voice of like, hello, Natalie, hello, what's happening here? And that merged into one where I woke up and said, oh my gosh, I've been playing this role. And it was literally like cut scene, action, cut scene. How does that go?
Something like that.
Like
You
Um,
realized you were
it was
two.
a big
You're like,
jolt.
yeah, you had that moment of
It's a very,
understanding
very
that
big
you're
jolt.
playing your part. Yeah.
Yeah. And everything changed in that moment. That was just about, let's see, 4 years ago, but it feels like it's been about 20. I went from being somebody who was a very religious person, very devout Christian. I had simplified my life in a way to where I was ready to go overseas and be a missionary and all of these things. And then after
you
the
were really
marriage,
drinking the Kool-Aid.
I drank a lot of Kool-Aid. Someone who doesn't drink Kool-Aid, which is funny.
I know. I drank the Kool-Aid.
And when that all kind of came to a halt, um, everything started to come out. All of the realities of the toxic marriage I had been in, the narcissistic abuse, on and on and on. I mean, all of these things that I had disassociated for so many years and didn't realize what was happening, what I had been choosing, but not understanding, right?
Yep.
Because I had been in this relationship since I was 19 years old. So 19 to 36, I had no idea what relationships were supposed to be like, what love truly was. I had just, like so many, abandoned myself and been whatever I was supposed to have been for this role as wife, especially being a military wife and, a wife of adoptive kids and biological kids and the stepmom and, you know, all of the things, all of the pressures and expectations.
Right.
Yeah. So it was a very big awakening, and it went through several phases. So the first part was losing the marriage and then losing the church family that I had been a part of, because people just couldn't understand why I just couldn't forgive again. What they didn't know or understand is that I had forgiven multiple infidelities. I had forgiven multiple abuses physically and emotionally, spiritually. I had
Right.
forgiven so much that I just couldn't understand how church people who had seen me as a worship leader for 10 plus years, and then having a partner who didn't serve in the church, that wasn't their life, but they were so quick to, go side, quote unquote, with that person. Or at least that's how it felt at the time, right? When we go through those things, we feel like everyone's against us and everyone must be talking about us and all these insecurities. Who knows what the reality was at that time, but that's how I felt at that time. So that caused me to take a step back and go, whoa, that's not the loving God that I had come to understand. And after that, I ended up getting a different job. And it was something that aligned with who I was at the time, which was a cannabis user. Because I was so sick in my marriage and I had had a spinal fusion, L4-5S1, so 3 levels on my lower back. I had a lot of pain, like chronically inflamed. And then I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia and all these things that so many women are diagnosed with. When the reality is that they're very sick because they have emotional blockages in their body, and usually trauma and things that have been stored for so long. So, very typical diagnoses. I had just about everything. So, I went from that life to stepping away, getting into a new job in cannabis. I worked for an advertising company or marketing company. Um, and I loved that because it allowed me to explore without the judgment of religion. I found the people to be much more welcoming, much more open, kinder in a lot of cases than what I had experienced in the corporate or religious church world. Um, and it was in that job that I started to meet people who were in the plant medicine world. And when I say plant medicine, I mean sacred ceremony, people who they weren't using recreationally or anything like that, but they were truly using these plants as medicine. And the one plant that really, really started to catapult me into transformation was psilocybin. So I was introduced to that, and that medicine actually completely pulled out my religion. And I had been, Southern Baptist raised since I was 5. I went to prophecy class. I have a Bible degree, or ministry degree. Like, I really knew these things. Well, I tell you what, it took one dose of mushrooms and scrap that right on out.
Understand.
Yeah. So,
Interesting.
after that, whenever I started to see the reality of the world and frequency and light and source versus a religious kind of concept of God, more source energy and who we are as spiritual beings, intergalactic beings, multidimensional beings, everything got reevaluated. I started to get a lot of downloads after that, a lot of things that weren't my logical brain, but it was like someone had just stuck a USB drive in there and was like, boom, data download.
Yep.
And with that, with those downloads, I started getting ideas of what I now call New Earth Wellness, which is an idea for a holistic community, holistic wellness institute, wellness retreat center, integration with the elderly, with veterans, with on and on and on, so many things. But that was still just kind of these things where I was kind of doodling at the time. I didn't really know what it was. And then jump forward to December 2023, and out of nowhere, I was laid off from my job. I've never been laid off. I've always been a really, really hard worker, type A Capricorn, always trying to be the best at what I did. And
Interrupt for a second. Are we still talking about the cannabis job?
yep.
Okay.
That's where I was. Yeah. I was heavily involved. I was a marketing director. I was doing events all the time. And all the feedback I had ever been given was that I was doing a great job and keep doing what I was doing. So when I got fired, it came as a huge shock. And then in that firing, it was based on a lie. So it was very evident that I was being redirected. Now, when that happened, I was livid. I was pissed. Like, what the heck? I can't believe they're saying this. Da, 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 da. Had a little freak out moment. You know, I'm a single mom. I didn't have a job. They gave me 2 weeks of severance. I didn't keep a savings account because I'd always made enough money that I just didn't need to. Lessons learned. And so I was like legitimately like, what the fuck? What am I gonna do? Like, what am I gonna do? You know? And
Yeah.
I had to surrender and just go, all right, source. I have no idea what I'm gonna do here. I don't really have family. I have a brother and a sister that, you know, we don't really talk very much. Yeah, my parents are deceased, so there was no like backing of like, oh, it's okay, I've got, you know, this money sitting in the bank, let me borrow, you know, send you some. There was none of that. um so I had to start connecting and asking for help outside of myself, and in that process it was like, well, what does that look like without religion, because I'm not religious. So I had to relearn these concepts of connecting with myself. What, well, do I pray or is that meditation? What is the word for this? Am I doing it right? Like everything got re-examined, like starting over like a baby, you know?
I
Um,
remember having a similar moment in my whole journey, which, you know, I won't share all that right now, but where I remember feeling thankful, but who am I thankful to? Like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
I don't do the whole religious prayer thing anymore. So
yeah,
how can I be thankful? I'm thankful to somebody. Who am I thankful for?
A lot
yourself,
of us
because
had
you're
that moment.
God.
It
Yeah.
took me a long while to get there, a long while to get there.
Yeah, I had a similar thing as well when I
Yeah.
moved from the idea of God to the idea of what is God and who do
Hmm.
I speak to.
Yeah.
So no, I understand. I feel that very strongly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had just had to get in this spot of like complete surrender of like, okay, well, if it worked all those times when I was in religion, I would pray and I would see things get answered. I knew that something worked. So I knew that whatever it was, I better get connected now. Stat.
Hmm.
Um, so after that, I started getting these synchronicities and I didn't know what those were before. Someone said just randomly, "Oh, have you read the Celestine Prophecy?" Well, if you've read it, you know. If you haven't yet, the fact that you're hearing me mention the name means you probably should read it.
Hmm.
Started seeing, you know, all kinds of numbers, 111, 222, every number repeating, and I'm like, what the heck is this? So I eventually realized, okay, this is source guiding me and talking to me, saying, keep going, you're on the right path. And I learned about flow, like getting into flow. When I was going to make a decision, I would ask and see how my body responded, see how it felt. So I knew which way to go. And then I would start getting, when I would meet certain people, I would start getting like tingling right here. And I was like, what the heck is that? That's weird, you know? And I realized it was every time I met somebody I was supposed to be connected with for a larger purpose, one I didn't know yet, except for I did, right? Because it was that stuff that I'd been journaling, but I didn't
Hmm.
realize I was journaling it. So anyway, all those kinds of things, those woo-woo weird things started happening to me. And it was very interesting because when you're a Christian, obviously those things are like, no, you know, we're told that's all bad, right? It's all bad. But I
I
started
resonate with that
meeting.
one too. I remember the first time I allowed myself to think outside of that box that you just described, and I was like, I mean, it's happening. I'm not
Yeah.
consistent anymore because I was so well. In my case, I was so devastated with what was happening in my life. It was my lifeline.
Yeah, yeah. So like having to figure out, well, what is truth? What is okay? What's not okay? What is right and wrong and good and bad? Like having to
What does that
redefine.
mean?
Oh, yeah. And then with that was like, well, then I have to redefine everything about myself, right? Because
Yeah.
I had lived in that shame of religion of having to be good enough, especially as a mother, and that I had to just go back and forgive myself for a lot. Like forgive myself of how I treated myself and the pressure I'd put on myself, and then I had to go back to my kids and help them deprogram and say, all these things I taught you, we're going to scratch a lot of that, you know, or we're going to remold it. We're going to rewire it. Right.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So a lot of work of redefining everything, who I am, what do I like? What's my purpose? What should I do? What shouldn't I do? And then throwing out the words should and shouldn't. and just
Getting better
realizing that,
things, right?
yeah, and then just realizing that all is divine, that there's no good and bad. There are experiences, and there's some
Mhm.
experiences you prefer, some maybe you don't prefer. Everything is
Definitely.
a lesson. Everything is going to get you to where you're supposed to be eventually.
It's all
Mhm.
happening for us, not to us.
Yeah,
Directed
exactly.
experience.
Yeah,
So
so
for somebody, my question, we've covered a lot of ground. I want to stop and revisit some stuff.
yeah.
Before we get too far. You mentioned that in your marriage there were a lot of infidelities. Are we talking about in particular affairs, or what did you mean by that?
Yes and yes. I say it now kind of comically because now I'm like, wow, you're really in denial, Natalie. But also like he was a busy guy. Okay. There was a 10-year affair with one particular woman, and that very sweet woman, I believe, was in delusion and denial in the same way I was. And then there were multiple affairs with short-term things. And it was very much like you could tell these were non-emotional, but then the long-term one was. So it was like, having your cake and eating it too, I guess. Kind of all of the things, which all stemmed from a deep, deep insecurity in him. That's my personal belief. Just deep insecurity and wounds that didn't heal, never feeling good enough, so needing that validation on an ongoing basis.
We all are on our path, right? He has his
Yeah,
own path as well, and he'll have his moments of those conversations,
yeah,
and there's, like you said, right and wrong are an interesting thing. Life is a lesson, and
yeah,
And an
not just
experience.
for us in this conversation, but for those that taught us the lessons, they had their own lessons to learn.
yeah,
I certainly was no saint or demon necessarily. I thought I was a demon in my life, a lot of my life,
yeah.
just because we all kind of have lessons to learn, and sometimes those lessons hurt people.
Yeah. Well, when I was able to redefine stuff for myself and forgive myself and
Mhm.
realize that I was doing the best with what I could, with what
Yeah,
I knew at the time, that allowed me to extend that same grace to that person and other people that have wounded me, is that they did the best with what they knew. Um, and they just haven't learned those things yet, right? Like who knows how many lives it takes us to get where we're at. I don't know how many lives this person's lived.
right.
I've come to
um,
Sometimes it's
look at it.
important too, it's important to also let go of those pains and those things that we think hurt us. They didn't hurt us. They made you who you are right now. And without that happening, you
yeah.
wouldn't be you. And frankly, I
100%
Yeah.
like
agree
you.
with
You're an
that.
amazing human, from what I know of you. And
Hey,
so,
I
so those things you had to go through, you had to go through, which in some way he sacrificed himself to be the idiot, if you will.
I got to,
I've
yeah,
been that idiot myself in some way.
yeah,
So I completely get that.
yeah. What
Yeah,
were you
I
thinking?
feel that strongly. I was thinking the same thing. Like in my situation, my big thing, my big wake up was with my passing of my daughter, and um, spoiler alert, have gotten to a point where I now see that as what exactly needed to happen to get me to be where I'm at now, and the idea of the role that she played, whether it was consciously or unconsciously, like her soul knew before she got here. um
Yeah.
that was like this huge moment of wow, feeling so much gratitude for that. And
Hmm.
so that was going to be my question, is where are you at with your relationship with your ex? Like obviously you've extended him some grace from what you're describing, but how have you gotten to a point of seeing what he had to offer you as a gift?
Yes, yes. I now see that every single thing that happened in my life has been a beautiful lesson and a beautiful unfolding. And without those things that I got to experience, I wouldn't have the deep empathy and compassion that I have for people. And I wouldn't have been driven to find so much healing and then go through the process of learning that and then being able to help other people without it. And those things that I got to experience gave me the tools and the resources so I could help so many people. And I'm so thankful because you can't hold space for somebody if you have no idea what it feels like to dig yourself out of hell. You know, your own personal hell that you usually had just as much help making.
Right,
Because we choose
right.
those things, you know.
We do,
Um,
whether it's consciously or subconsciously.
Yeah. And I heard someone say too, or read it somewhere, I don't know, that the people who cause you the most harm in life, they signed up before they came to this life to be that person to trigger all of that awakening in you. So
uh,
that person must love me very much, even if he doesn't remember it in this life.
yeah,
Right. What
like a
also
soul
makes me wonder?
contract. That makes me
That,
think of the Celestine book as well. You know, we are
Mhm.
always offering one another a gift. It's whether we're open to receiving what that gift is from that person,
Yeah.
and they don't always necessarily recognize they're offering a gift. So it's whoever can be conscious in that situation can say, "Oh, all right, I see what's happening. How can
Yeah.
I? What's the gift here?"
Yeah. And he's taught me the biggest lessons because I had to learn how to love myself. Because I didn't for all of those years, because I would give everything I had as a wife, as a mother, as a worship leader,
Mhm.
as a blah, 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 all the things. And I didn't even know who I was to even begin loving myself. And because
Yep.
I felt so unloved, and then afterwards, figuring that whole thing out and dating and all self-worth and learning those things, wow.
Yeah.
So I'm really thankful because also it's so tangible and raw that I've already been able to teach my kids about these things before they get into any relationships or marriages or become parents, and teach them about what it means to love yourself first, how to have boundaries,
Yes.
how to speak your truth, how to listen to your body, how to feed your body well. Because I've been so
Mhm.
sick, you know? So yeah, it's all yeah, it's all
It's
been
really
worth.
interesting. Part of that we just said is really interesting because I mean, you and I have some very similar backgrounds, both religiously and in a way, I was your husband, but I was also you. Like I had a lot of interesting connections. But that's it's really kind of some deep thought when you think about what each of these pieces mean and the idea of self-love. And I think it's not just you. I'm sure he was the same way, you know. If you don't love yourself, you can't receive love from others. You won't accept it kind of. And so others have a hard time loving you like you deserve.
Yeah.
If you don't love yourself because you don't know who you are,
And it
you
doesn't
mean
fit the
everything but
pattern.
you. Yeah, it ends up in a pattern very,
Yeah.
very much.
Mhm.
And I think many of us go through our relationships learning how to find ourselves. And sometimes we can only find ourselves through somebody else, even if it's through conflict.
Yeah.
It's the mirror thing. You have to look in that mirror, and sometimes what you see in the mirror is truly what you're looking at yourself.
Yeah.
But we don't realize it. We think we're looking at an asshole over there, and we don't think it's us or whatever it is we think we're looking at. And sometimes we have to realize that mirror we look in is very much self-reflection. What I see is who I am, and it's interesting. But
Yeah.
I see that's a pretty deep thought. I like
Yeah,
that.
there's a couple verses that popped in from what you just said from the Course in Miracles, where one, it says that every relationship we have is the right relationship because that's our teacher.
Yeah.
And second being, I don't remember exactly how the other one goes, but talking about absorbing all of the projections that we've put out into the world.
Mhm.
What keeps hitting me in a number of different ways is whether you look at it biologically or philosophically or theologically or whatever type of study you want to use, is the world that we're in is a blank canvas and we get to put what we want on it. And if we're not loving ourselves and we are projecting all these shoulds and should nots onto the world because
Mhm.
they're what we believe about ourselves,
Hmm.
then the world is an unpleasant place. Like,
Right.
the paper that you shared earlier with me, David, where you had the conversation with AI, and I highlighted a section that was talking about mental health. and that we have all these mental health issues because people are, I forget how it phrased it, something like they believe they're in hell or something. I forget how it said it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
to me, it was
They're
like, well,
creating their own hell.
exactly. That it's
Yeah.
not that they're in hell, it's that they've made that
They assume
reality
that.
with all these beliefs, you know,
All that.
how it should or
The,
shouldn't be.
the other piece that really stuck out to me in my own kind of journey to get who I am was understanding we're placed in a certain situation. Like you and I think you were the same. I was born into a religion that I was told was true. I didn't necessarily join there. I didn't decide to go to that religion. I was thrown into it. And when I started finding my own healing, I went through my own ancestry, kind of looking at my lineage, because there's some trauma there that I didn't know was there. I didn't realize my life was hard because all my friends had harder lives. I didn't understand my own pain. I just
Yeah.
thought I was fine. And my mom was very loving, and so I had a lot of love there, although there was a lot of abuse on the other end of that. That I didn't understand who I was. But later when I find myself, I started looking at my lineage. Where I was placed was purposeful. Because I'm not just healing myself. I'm healing my father, his
Yeah.
father. I'm healing a line. I'm healing a sacred line of lineage through my family. And I wasn't aware. My daughter very much brought me to that point, the idea of ancestral trauma. And I
Mm.
didn't know what the hell that meant, frankly, until I started digging into it and realized, oh, of course that's a thing. We're not, everybody doesn't have this equal playing field that you just get the trauma that you earned. No, not true. If your parents had trauma, you received trauma.
Yeah.
Because, but each of us, I think, goes through our life, and each time, each generation, hopefully, heals some of those traumas. And so our
Yeah.
children have less than we did, and we hope they have less than our parents. Although we
Yeah.
may not know what our parents had because traumas are often not shared because we don't want to pass them along, so we don't speak about them, which passes them
Yeah.
along. Sometimes by the act of not acknowledging they were there, that we acknowledge they were there with some other way.
Yeah.
The trauma is passed through in other forms. And I think as this generation, honestly, our generation, not just our children, this is a healing generation. We're one of the generations that are really part of a major healing of the planet and
Yeah.
healing of our ancestry.
Yeah. Well, and that's a part of like what this journey has been for me is my mom had a lot of very narcissistic tendencies. So she was very, very critical. She was also neurodivergent like I am. So it's just very black, white communication and very cold. And so I really struggled with, am I enough for her? Like, does she love me? And that carried into my relationship with men. And healing that in myself allowed me to teach that to my daughter. And I have seen her change from this she's 16 now. I've seen her change for this young girl who walked on eggshells in the same way I did to now having this boldness. She lives with me full time, so it's a little bit different, but she has this boldness. You're laughing because you know her and you already know,
I
right?
know her. She's so beautiful, wonderful
Yeah.
human. Yeah.
She has this amazing boldness to speak her truth and she will call me out. I mean, she did it just last night because I was very frustrated and irritated and I just had a little meltdown with my boys when yeah, I'll just leave it
Mm-hmm.
there. And she was like,
Happen.
"Mommy, yeah," and I was just like, "You're
All
right.
right.
You're right." So I feel like that has been such huge ancestral healing just in that, because I know like she will live nothing like the way I did or endure the things I did because she knows who she is. She loves herself. She cares for her body. I mean, it's just beautiful. And that, I think that same kind of thing is happening with so many people,
Yeah.
especially women. And that's
Yeah.
why you see so many women healers who are doing this kind of work because we've done that hard work to heal it. And we just want other people to experience that same freedom, that
Yes.
same healing. Because all those physical things I mentioned, the pain, the fibromyalgia, all the things, I've healed all of that. Like I don't have
Right.
any of that anymore. I'm not on any pharmaceutical pills. I do use cannabis as medicine, plant medicine. Um, I don't use anything else. I don't need to. Because once I
Right.
started getting all that trauma out of my body, those physical things just went away. Like I had migraines
Mm-hmm.
my whole life, 15 to 38, and it's
Wow.
been 2 to 3 years. I've had no migraines, like none.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show you, like, we have so much power, and
Yes.
we always we tend to give away our power to doctors, to
Mm-hmm.
priests, to whatever it is. And now people are
Give
starting to
someone
go,
else
oh
yours.
wait, I have that power. I can do that. I can talk to God. I am God. I do have that
Yeah.
source, and now I have that connection with nature because of plant medicine. It wasn't even
Mm-hmm.
on my radar before. And now there's this just deep respect and love and union with nature. And that's why I
Yeah.
want to build this community stuff, is because I want others to experience that same kind of mind, body, soul, emotional healing as we
Yeah.
heal the earth.
So
And
my
sharing with your
question would
daughter.
be, excuse me,
I'll get back to
um,
that.
my question would be, if there's somebody listening to this podcast who is in the shit show, like maybe they're in the abusive marriage, or they're going through the hellacious divorce, or their community has cast them away,
Or the
or
perceived shit show, we should call it, right? It's not
yes,
really a shit show, it's a
yes,
perception of it.
exactly. If they are still very much feeling like they're living through hell, what
Mm.
what one thing would you say to them that would help them move in a direction of heaven?
I would say that we carve our own reality. We create the reality that we want. And the way that we get there is through death and rebirth. The removal of all the things that aren't us, all of the labels, all of the masks, all the programming, all the should and should not, the good and the bad, and you get to let those things fall away. Whether it's the
Mhm.
career, the relationship, maybe something with your kids. These are just some of the things I've experienced, the health, whatever it is, because if you don't let go, the new can't come in. So you have to let those
Mhm.
things go. But you also have to
Mhm.
choose that. Because if you just say, well, they're doing this and they did this to me, and you just keep blaming other people and say, I can't do it because of them or that, you are giving away your power. So you have to choose to take back your power, and you have to choose to say, this is the life I am going to live. This is the way I'm going to create my day. This is how I'm going to do this. If you don't do that, no one else is going to do it for you. No one is going to fly out of the sky and come do these things for you. We were created and instilled with this purpose. And the only way you find that is if you quit being what everyone else told you to be, or what you think they told you to be. And you quit caring about what everyone else thinks. And you tune in to say, what do I think? What do I believe? What do I feel? And then you
Yeah.
do that. And that's where
I
the
think
beauty comes from ashes.
I think
Yes.
it's interesting too, the idea, and I know this because I met you and your daughter, is I would have to say that you're very honest and open with your daughter about who you have been in your life.
Oh, yeah.
And I've learned that on my own. I'm a poet. I read a lot of poetry. For a long time, I didn't share it because it was raw. It was very much
Mm.
deep and in pain. My
Yeah.
mom once read it and she's like, "Are you okay? Because your poetry's so dark." But that
Mm.
was my way of letting out the darkness because
Transmutation.
because I didn't speak to my children, right? I didn't tell them the truth, but I wrote it down.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes the art we paint is the canvas of our children. And so they hear our truth. And when we're authentic to our children, we heal ourselves because we can't be authentic to children, not be authentic to self.
Yeah.
We can lie to our children when we're lying to ourselves.
Mhm.
When we think we're doing the right thing, we're pretending to do this, or we're like, we don't know what we're doing.
Right.
We can only do what we know. We can't do better unless we know better. But as we learn to be
Mhm.
authentic and speak to not just our children, but the world, the more authentic we speak, the more quickly we heal our inner self because the higher self hears the voice. When we speak our
Yeah.
truth, we hear our truth and we know who we are.
Mhm.
And we know if we're
Yeah.
authentic. We know if we're
Yeah.
fudging the truth or we're trying to tout the ego or to blow ourselves up so we think we're greater than somebody else. We know inside that's horseshit.
Yeah.
But we may say
Yeah.
it
It's a
because
glass
we're trying to
house.
protect ourselves.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but I
And the
saw that
longer,
with you. You're very strong with your daughter.
yeah, I have been very, very open with my kids, and I haven't been perfect either. I have my plenty of my things when I was growing up and learning, and they know about all of those things and the lessons that came out of them, the the hard lessons learned. They know all about them because I don't want them to repeat those things, you know.
Right.
But I also want them to have grace and compassion on other people because we all have our lessons. Everybody has their lessons, and that's what makes us human. And then
Right.
also remembering that we are one, and that whenever we're pushing out other people or we're harming other people, we're harming ourselves. You
It's a
know.
form of self-rejection.
Magic mirror.
Yeah. I don't remember if it was in Course of Miracles or I read it somewhere else, but I think it was Course of Miracles that said any form of self-rejection is unnatural. Like
Mm,
we've been told, like, as far as the health stuff, some of the things that you mentioned with your health were autoimmune related. And
mhm,
we've been told by the health system, well, your body is attacking itself.
right.
And that's also horse shit because your body is like life chooses to go on. And the
Mm,
reason why, well, one of the best explanations I've heard as far as cancer is that the cell, that particular, defective cell or group of cells is so convinced that they're isolated from the whole that
mm,
they, and they're so broken, if you will, because of that, that they, rather than just giving up, like, okay, I'm all by myself and I'm just going to die, they find a way to continue to create more life, broken
mm,
as it is, and make, a tumor or whatever. And I'm like, okay, that totally makes sense. So if we look in terms of culturally speaking, if we're, at speaking as one giant organism, and we're rejecting certain parts, which is really just parts of ourselves,
yeah.
it's kind of like the cancer story. And until we can allow ourselves to really love ourselves so much that these other parts are acceptable, unconditional love, like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Spoken of self-love, and people a lot of times will paint this rosy story of that means bubble baths and chocolates and taking yourself to nice restaurants and whatever. And nothing wrong with any of those things, but
Maybe
that's
part of it, but there's
only
more
a
to it.
scratching of the surface.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, it's like we are our own universe, and every
right.
one of our atoms are all intelligent. Our
Yeah.
hearts are obviously smart. They're doing something I didn't tell it to, but it knows how to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
My
And
lung knows how to do it. All my cells do the things they're supposed to do. And when
yeah.
we don't give them that love and respect, we don't respect and love our body, then it will quit respecting and loving us
Yeah.
back.
And your cells are listening to everything you say. So back
Right.
when I used to be very sick, I would say things like, my body hates me. I'm so old,
Uh-huh.
such an old lady already.
Mhm.
And I would speak those things over myself. So of course the body is like, oh, we're old, we're broken, and then it's like, okay, well, let's vibrate to whatever that is that she just said. So
Right. Dad, we're
that was a
listening.
big part of my healing, was like not saying those kinds of things anymore and speaking, love over my
Yeah.
body. You're wholly made, you're wonderful, you're in perfect health, on and on. And things did
Self
start healing.
manifestation, right?
Yes, exactly.
Manifestation is huge. Like it's funny, a lot of people who are into manifestation, they think they can manifest, money or gold outside of themselves, but they still don't realize manifestation is also internal. Like the
Yeah.
things we say to ourselves are very important. Or the
Yeah.
things we say to the universe are important. Things we say are important.
Hmm.
Or think are
Yeah.
important, or all these things. No, that's really a deep thought. Very, very true. I resonate with that very much.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you brought up manifestation because that was another big part of my healing journey. Was I did some learning with Joe Dispenza just through his
Mhm.
books, and I learned about neural rewiring and changing
Mhm.
those synapses by, just changing what I thought and taking every thought captive, like the Bible says, take every thought captive and stopping it in its tracks when it would be something like, oh, I'm so sick or something like that. And, just rerouting that, but then also visualizing the reality I did want. So that's how I started manifesting everything pretty much after my job loss. Was like, I need some help. So if this works, I better do it now.
Mhm.
So I sat down with a pen and paper. I wrote down all the qualities I wanted out of the next job that I was going to get at the perfect timing, with the perfect salary, with the great leadership, all those things. And then I got that exactly when I needed it, like right after my funding ran out, got the job literally the next week. And then I did that with the place that I moved into, and then the next place I moved into, and then things like where I really started to create the reality I wanted, I would say I am an avid world traveler, and I hadn't traveled anywhere, not really. I'd been to some mission trips in Mexico and Cuba, but nowhere like for fun, you know. So I started doing that, and I would sit down and think about these trips and what it would feel like when I would get on the plane, and the food I would eat, what the sunset would look like. I mean, very specific. And then those things started to happen. And then the car, and then the relationship. I mean, just yeah.
Mm.
So it's gotten really fun now to go from like a victim of, oh, I'm in pain and I'm in an abusive marriage and I'm recovering from narcissistic abuse and all these labels I would have, which are true. Those things are true because those were factual, right? But
Right.
that was the story.
It was
That was
yesterday.
that was the lesson. Now I am this. I am.
Right.
Like I am this.
Yeah.
I am.
That is the statement I think that most of us don't do enough, right? The I am moment when we
Yes.
instead of I am sick, which we often say, I am old, I am sick. No, I'm not.
I
No,
am that I
am.
am.
Yeah, I just am. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I am God's source. I am a temple.
Yeah,
I am
I'm
it.
happy.
I am the spirit. I am the body. I'm all of it. We're all of it. You
Right.
know, and so now I
Positive affirmations.
yeah.
I have a couple of questions to wrap us up.
Okay.
I want to make sure we stay within that hour time frame. So one, I don't think we've really beforehand we asked, but I don't think the listeners have heard yet. What time frame are we talking about? The Natalie that was whose life was falling apart to where we're at now.
4 years.
Okay, so
2021 started with divorce.
Spin back to
Mhm.
Natalie at the point where you had your first aha, like, okay, I've got to make some changes. What was a typical day in the life of that Natalie?
Ooh.
Or do you want to go there?
This you're talking 2021, like right before divorce?
Yeah, I think you said earlier that the divorce was kind of the first big breakthrough moment.
Yeah. So before it was when these thoughts would come up of like fear or worry or like, how is this going to work? All that cognitive dissonance, I would just put it in a little box and put it out in the backyard behind where I would never look at it again and pretend it never existed and torch it. I would gaslight myself so much because I had to make sense. One funny example, I think it's funny now, but I'm sorry to anyone who may listen to this and go, oh no. So my ex-husband, he used to take showers before the gym, quote unquote gym. And now I know that's like when he would go see, you know, these women or whatever, but I would just, whenever I would see what was happening, I would just be like, surely not, and just completely gaslight myself, you know? And there'd be so much like fighting and fighting and like just back and forth all the time. There was no peace. I was always miserably sick, always nauseous, had a headache, almost every day had a headache. And there was always these competing voices in my head, you know, of Natalie, what are you doing? What do you think, Natalie? And then, oh, just keep praying. We've got this. Let's just show grace. Just, oh, so much grace. And now I am very, very healthy. I have so much peace. I live out in the middle of nature. I love my life. Like I love my life. I am so happy about the things I get to do, the people I get to meet, like you guys. I get to travel to these places. I just get to follow my highest joy. It's not perfect. You know, there are still some days that are, you know, like, whew. But that's the human experience. So now I can look at it and go, huh, I wonder what this lesson's going to be, you know, and just kind of like have fun. My child has came back, you know, I can just laugh at myself. I can laugh at incidences, and I don't stay stuck in that, you know, mode of someone else did something or anything. I know I'm in control of my life. I am my own sovereign being.
Right.
That.
Yeah.
So if there were one thing that like, let's say looking back at the last 4 years and maybe at the beginning of, you know, making all of these changes, you were like, I don't know, this little habit change doesn't seem like it's going to add up to be that much of a big deal. And now you look at it and you go like, wow, that little habit change was huge. Like what would that be if you were going to point somebody towards a potential little change that they think is insignificant? That's really not.
Oof. I would say a couple of things. One is grounding, which is putting your feet in the dirt, directly into the dirt, no shoes, no socks, and visualizing light running through your body and energy going out through your feet into the earth, and doing that every day, multiple times a day if you need to, and clearing your energy. Because we take on so much energy from other people, and that can cause so much illness. So being very aware of my energy body and listening to my body, taking the time to listen to my body, meditate and get quiet and hear what comes through. That is a big thing. You've got to connect to the earth, and you got to connect to yourself. Then the other one is watching the words you speak, and watch the thoughts in your head and tell those suckers to be quiet and replace the thought with something that is productive and loving, because then everything changes. Then you're really, what's the word? Cooking with bacon. What's the
Grease.
With gas.
cooking with gas?
I forgot that one.
With Crisco, I think it's into you ask, right?
I think I'm a little hungry, so I was thinking about bacon.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Natalie, for sharing your story and being so open. And I look forward to seeing what exciting new things you will bring into the world, because I'm sure they'll be amazing.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And I'm just happy to get to know you. It's been awesome getting to know you, and I'm looking forward to doing more. I still want to travel to Oklahoma and soon, hopefully. And
Yep.
hope to help you with your project and become more part of that. And
Absolutely. We'll have to talk about that on another episode.
that's right.
Thank you
Awesome.
all.
Well, thank you all. On that note.